Now, onto some business. The absence of a cold room to ensure the continuous preservation of over 14,000 seed and crop species may affect the country if authorities go ahead to introduce genetically modified crops into the country. Officials at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research's Plant Genetic Resources Research Institute are therefore appealing to the government to provide funding to set up cold rooms for the preserved species.
The National Gene Bank, since its creation in 1964, has been able to gather and preserve over 14,000 indigenous and foreign plant species. The species include legumes, cereals, vegetables, roots and tubers, as well as tree crops, spices, and medicinal plants. But these preserved indigenous species may be destroyed if immediate steps are not taken to provide cold room for them, as the Gene Bank currently depends on the use of refrigerators. The country will also have to allocate resources to ensure the expansion of the Gene Bank to conserve the country's indigenous genetic resources before the introduction of genetically modified crops.
We use freezers to store seeds, yes, and we should have had a cold room, yes, but because we don't have, they are basically using domestic freezers, which we conserve the seeds at minus 20 degrees. Apart from that, the frequent power outages, we should have had a standby generator, which we do have, but even the fueling of it becomes a problem.
Farmers, however, have a vast variety of traditional seeds they can access anytime they want, despite recent attempts to introduce genetically modified crops into the system.
Per the seed policy of Ghana, all breeding institutions and individuals are supposed to deposit samples of their material, whatever material is released or registered in Ghana, with the Gene Bank for reference, for documentation, and for security. Because there is a lot of diversity that we have not been able to capture in the Gene Bank. We require resources to do the collecting missions, and we also need resources to expand our conservation facilities. It's only when we do that that we'll be able to secure at least the majority of the diversity within Ghana. But until we do that, there is a possibility that if GM is adopted and things don't go well, there might be gene flow. But obviously, the adoption of genetically modified crops comes with stewardship measures. And once these stewardship measures are adhered to, then you know that they are safe. But in the absence of these stewardship measures, then we have to make sure that we collect and conserve as much as possible our indigenous genetic resources.
In response to the crisis of biodiversity loss, climate change, environmental degradation, and shifts in food consumption habits, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research is implementing a 5-year Seed for Resilience project in northern Ghana, led by the Crop Trust and funded by the German Development Bank. The project is to ensure the preservation of indigenous species and also ensure the production of resistant varieties to ensure food security in the country.